Hey everybody, it's Jillian Epperly coming at you straight out of Ohio, watching these stupid riots last night. Oh my lordy, but this isn't really any surprise when there is a major trigger in the population of violence and death. And death is definitely a trigger for some people, well, actually for everybody, obviously. And then all the politics around death. So, I'm just going to be quite honest with you. I've been looking at just all the different people that are participating on my J Juice, and I see I see all the colors of the rainbow that are on my J Juice. And then there are certain people that stand out that are actually getting benefit, or they're doing it to where they are actually getting benefit. And I want to say that, yeah, with this whole climate of race and all the isms that are around that, and then what is race or physical characteristics that are common in different groups of people. Well, these physical characteristics have to do with your biological makeup, called biodiversity, but there are actual biological mechanisms that go on that create specific characteristics. Like when I go out in the sun, and I'm pretty tan. Actually, I've kept my tan. I'm pretty dark right now. Okay. So my body is sensing that, okay, I'm still dark, which means that my body is calibrating itself. And it's not immediately purging out the melanin in my body. Because I think a couple of years ago, if I were to be out in the sun, my skin would be peeling off all of the burned skin, I guess. But somehow the sun and the UV rays have then triggered the melanin to keep producing, which is fine because it's a protection, and I'm pretty well balanced, and so I'm keeping this even tan, and I'm not seeing any kind of peeling going on my face or my legs or anything. So it's really trippy. Okay, so that's a physical characteristic. That's a biological mechanism. That is something that happens due to environmental influences. And then when winter comes around, okay, I turn really white. I am so white, it's like, what the hell? And some people say that during wintertime over here, people get seasonal affect disorder. But I've never had seasonal affect disorder since being on the J Juice. Now, I would say I had PMDD, a couple years ago, and that would affect every month, and that could be considered a seasonal affect disorder. Yeah, has the same characteristics. But no, I could be not out in the sun at all. I'll still get vitamin D because I'll go outside. Okay, and it's not like I stay inside in the cover of darkness 24/7, and I'll still get vitamin D, but I know I'm not going to turn super, super, super brown like I am. Okay? And so watching all the comments, like on CNN, online, on Facebook, when they're covering all the riots in Minneapolis, and you see people going like, fight the power. And there's all colors of the rainbow, which is great. You have like the really white fist all the way to a very dark fist. And okay, that's awesome because you are saying all lives matter, and that's great. But you realize that on each end of the spectrum, a very, very dark fist and a very, very light fist, there are hormonal imbalances that happen through all the colors of the rainbow. And doing some studies on sickle cell anemia, which doesn't only cover African Americans. Sickle cell anemia, people who have old predispositions, are also Asian, Middle Eastern, South American, Hispanic, what else? All of the hotter climates have people that have predispositions to sickle cell anemia. And that comes from where you have low vitamin D levels due to a heavier melanin. Okay? And so when you have a heavier melanin, sickle cell anemia, that also then translates into heart disease. So if you're really, really white, okay, you could have, you could have your own issues because you don't have enough melanin and you're out in hot climates, and so you have to protect yourself. So you don't tan, maybe you do, maybe you don't, I don't know. And then you can be really, really dark and have low levels of vitamin D. But I wouldn't say a really, 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 really light person would have sickle cell anemia, but you would have other types of intolerances to the sun and maybe you have more potential for cancer unless you actually tan. And some people who are very, very light skinned, very, very light skinned, like albinos, don't have the ability to tan. They have such an absence of melanin that they don't have that kind of protection. Okay? And that right there is a problem in of itself. So when you think about race, it really has to do with physical characteristics based upon your biochemical fluctuations. That's all race is. And that's why this is so crazy with people who with these racial overtones. It's so insane because it's become now like a thing, and it's not now, but it's always been a thing. But people don't look at the actual root cause behind what race is. I mean, we are actually separating ourselves through biological fluctuations. And there is a way to even the playing field. But we have some people have some cultures and some races have so much history, so much PTSD, so much history and so much PTSD. They have so much to get through. Like I really had not had a hard time doing the J juice. I think I've healed for the most part in 4 years. Okay. But some of you are like in your 60s, super, super, super light skinned with other, with major issues, and you're older. And so you have a lot more to go through. Some of you have such low levels of vitamin D, and you have a propensity for diabetes, heart attacks, strokes, blood disorders like sickle cell anemia. And so you have to get through all of that before you have some kind of feeling of like where you are seeing, like where you feel like, oh my God, this is like a whole new world. Because some of you have been living with your disorders, whatever they are, whether it's diabetes, obesity, heart issues, blood issues, and you've dealt with it. It's become second nature. Your doctor tells you stay away from this, stay away from that, whatever. You kind of listen, you kind of don't, whatever. It doesn't really make a difference to you. And now, what I'm saying is that some of you are going to have a harder time doing J juice, which means that the people that are going to have an easier time on J juice are the ones that don't have as much, which is obvious. This is like a duh, right? If you don't have as many issues, it's going to be easier to do J juice, right? Well, that makes sense. But, some cultures are going to have a harder time on J juice. I'm not saying it's altogether impossible, because I have people that over in Peru, South America, that are doing the J juice reverse their cancer. Okay. And they have, a higher melanin, absorption and production, but yet they're still able to, and so it's a matter of how many predispositions. So it really isn't, I wouldn't say it's totally color related, but I would say that it might be harder if you have a major hormonal imbalance and I don't know, that's the thing is, I don't know when somebody does have a hyperpigmentation, okay? And you can call it whatever the hell you want, but a hyperpigmentation, which means that is an imbalance in the hormones. When they do the J juice, let's say they do it, could they get lighter skin? Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, if you look at, or if you do research on people with higher estrogen levels, or people that are getting hyperpigmentation or pigmentation because of hormonal fluctuations, well, melanin is just a hormone. That's all it is. But people treat it as if it's like a culture. No, biological diversity doesn't have to be a culture. It's your practices, it's your belief systems that what make culture. It's your belief systems, your practices, your habits. That's a culture. But how your body manifests based upon environmental conditions is not a culture. It's just how your body operates based upon what you have given it and then what you've allowed to perpetuate and sustain. And so, there's no politically correct way to even attack the J juice and have certain people understand without it being turned politicized. So I try to be very careful in how I speak about melanin and pigmentation and light versus dark and all that stuff. It's not even light versus dark. It's just the fact that it's a biological fluctuation mechanism that if you have that genetic predisposition and it's been passed down for years and years and years, it's going to take a change in the biochemistry to change up and disappear that predisposition or change that predisposition to something else. And so this is almost unheard of because people are so used to, you are this culture, which is this race, and that's all you're ever going to be, which, okay, that's fine, but it's not just the skin color and physical characteristics. It's also belief systems and, and lifestyle. But I would say that if, when you have historical damage done, you have so many issues and so many post-traumatic stress for centuries and centuries and centuries, it's going to be very difficult. And it's something that you wear on your sleeve. When you wear all of your PTSD on your sleeve as if this is who you are, and that's no different than someone that, from World War II, the people that are victimized in World War II. There's a lot of people who are walking around so wounded and so damaged from from the 1920s and 30s, from World War II. And then people who were damaged from way back in the 1960s. And then people were damaged way back from when, during the slave trade. Okay. So, and that's no different than the Irish versus, so it's like we have so many people so damaged from so many years, and then of course our media keeps fanning those flames and all of that. And it's like, oh my God. But that's why J Juice is so important, if not even more important, for people who are that hurt, who are that damaged from just what they're dealing with today to something that happened in history. And, it's very hard not to come off as doing, I don't know. It's hard not to be politically correct when I'm speaking about this, because I know what people are up against. I know when someone is like 500 pounds with heart issues and lung issues and they're doing the J Juice, believe me, I know what they're up against. Okay, because they've got years and years and years of damage they have to go in reverse and purge out and all of that. So when somebody, is from a culture that has years and years and years and centuries of damage, I know exactly what they're up against. I could tell by a person's size, I could tell by just even their politics, what they're going to have to deal with on the J Juice. And it's not going to be pretty, because it's a lot to undo. It's a lot to undo. And that's the whole beauty of J Juice, is that you can de-brainwash yourself from all of these historical craps that people are cycling in. But it's going to be a flippin' job. It's going to be a battle. And I don't know how I can help people really sustain that battle, because I'll tell you what, it's easier to get pulled into other people's perceptions of the world and then completely forget about J Juice, because J Juice is hard. It's easy to blame and protest and be an activist and all that. It's very easy to go and blame Bill Gates. It's very easy to go blame another culture for your predispositions. It's so easy to blame somebody else. It is so much harder to actually face your own demons. And that's why I know it's going to be harder for some cultures to do J Juice, because it would have to undo every single blame they would have that they thought contributed to their position in life. And that includes anyone that comes from a really bad background. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. If you have a huge history of abuse in your family, of abuse is, from husband and wife, and you have bullies in the world that you live in, or you come from, a war-torn nation. I mean, yeah, doing J Juice is going to be difficult, because you're going to have to face all of the things that you've ever dealt with. And if you have, history of genetics that's been through major trauma, you're going to have to deal with ancestral trauma as well. Not only the trauma that you've experienced in your current life, but everything else that your parents experienced. Okay, and on some level, there are things that I've experienced. I'm like, my God, I don't think I've experienced this, really. During my lifetime. I mean, yeah, I've had some issues in my life, but nothing that's that. But there were things that came to surface. I'm like, where the hell did that come from? And it could have been a genetic thing that was latent deep inside that came to surface from, history, from my prior generations, from my parents or grandparents. Okay, so that's what people are up against when they have so much history of violence and so much history of enslavement. When you think about it, so much history of violence, so much history of just, so much trauma, regardless, trauma to the body, mind, and spirit. It's going to be very hard for someone to do the J juice because they're going to have to reface that trauma. And it may be as bad or maybe not be as bad. It's hard to say, but hey, when someone's done drugs and they've done psychedelics and they've done acid and they've been on prescription drugs and all of that, and then, their body, they know their body is still riddled with all that. It's not to the surface. Maybe they were like addicted to oxycodone for so many, many years. And so they do the J juice, all of that crap's going to come to surface, and you might have to revisit those antibodies that are leaving your body, and you're going to have to feel some of the feelings, whether it's the thought processes while you're on those drugs to even physical sensations and character. Let me tell you, I had people that gave me feedback because they were on antidepressants a long, long time ago, and they're not on it anymore, but they did the J juice and they had some of the revisitation of those feelings while they were on those drugs. Yeah, it's going to happen. Okay? And so that's the thing about J juice is that, yeah, you're going to go back in time. And if you have a lot of history, like a lot, it's going to be difficult. I'm not going to lie. It's going to be difficult. But it's not impossible. That's the thing, is you got to be strong enough to fight the battles that are within your body, that stuff that you've been suppressing for such a long time. And that's why, that's why it takes time with the J juice. It's not a cure. It doesn't just disappear your pain like, that quickly, though some of you may have that experience because you don't have as deep of the trauma. But if you have deep latent trauma and it's been suppressed and suppressed and suppressed, and it only comes out when you get triggered by certain behaviors or people, then you're going to be dealing with that on an exponential level. And you have to be prepared for that. And people around you got to be prepared for that if they know your history. Okay? And so J juice is like everything. It's everything that the medical holistic industry cannot do. They will not be able to touch the power of J juice because they have a whole different purview on pain and how to because they know that based upon your predispositions, your age, and your lifestyle, that they can kind of figure out if they do chemotherapy on you, they do all these different procedures on you because of reactions to cancer and whatever, that they might buy you a few years, maybe. They might buy you 5 or 10 years. I mean, if you're like, 6'5", 350 pounds, and you have cancer, you might probably survive the chemotherapy. Most likely you could do radiation chemotherapy, and yeah, you might age for like 5 or 15, 20 years, but you'd survive, and you can go back to work, and they maybe can get maybe 5 or 10, maybe they get 5 years out of you at work, and you buy yourself 5 years. That's the medical holistic industry, is they figure out how many years you have left on your telomeres based upon all of the different, tests and your predisposition, lifestyle, and whatever, and belief systems. And that's how they determine what kind of procedures to do on you. Okay, but that's like playing Russian roulette. That's like rolling the dice. I mean, why the hell would you do that? If you know you can buy yourself 300, 400, 500 years, why the hell would you want to buy something like 5 years? Maybe. I mean, that's the world that we live in. So people will spend thousands of dollars. They will spend $100 on a nickel. Oh, this nickel is so pretty. It's like gold, and it's still a nickel though. It's still worth 5 cents. It's not gold, it's silver. But yeah, this nickel is so pretty, but we're going to charge you $100 for this nickel. That's exactly what you deal with the medical holistic industry, is they keep selling you nickels for $100. And people keep buying the fucking nickels for $100. Instead of finding the salt, the cabbage, the water, deal with their damn issues, and then they get $100 plus without having to get a nickel. They get $100. They don't spend $100 on a nickel. They get the $100 and then some. And they can keep regenerating that money. They don't have to go and buy it from other people. They can keep making it themselves. So, so I know how hard it's going to be for some people doing the J juice because of historical shit that they have to deal with. Hey, Tiffany. And so So that's probably why I'm seeing a pattern in the testimonies, who the people are to give me the testimonies, and it's interesting. I want to see more of the people with the darker melanin giving me major testimonies. I haven't seen it yet, but I know there's a reason why. And they have a lot more to get through. And I feel bad because it's very difficult. I mean, I don't want just like, a testimony like, oh yeah, I reversed my eczema. That's one thing out of a million things you have. Eczema is not the only thing somebody has, as far as their predispositions. But I want to see someone with really dark melanin really give me a sound testimony. Because I know if somebody like that gives me a major testimony, they have battled some major demons. And so, all of this stuff in the media really is making me just take a look at the participants on the J Juice, who has it easier, who doesn't, who I'm going to see is going to make it, and who I'm like, I know they're not going to make it. They're going to fall off. And I hope they don't. But, I know what they're up against. I know what all of you guys are up against. And I hope for the best, but I know reality. And so, so I've been writing my next book. My other book is going to be a minute before. I'm still dealing with my publisher because they left out the table of contents. And so right now they had to do a resubmission. And so now it's just getting them to come back to me and tell me they've corrected the corrections to where then they can go and get me the physical book so I can take a look at it. So it's not going to be June 1st. It'll be sometime in June where the book is going to be released. But that's okay. I mean, that's just kind of the nature of the beast as far as publishing and then this whole pandemic stuff. But yeah, I've been doing my next book, and I'm really bringing in the whole macro part of the J Juice and how people who don't do J Juice, these are what revolutions are and devolutions, okay? And this is evolution, revolution, devolution. I'm done with the revolutions. They're becoming boring to me. And Tiffany goes, I'm tan, goodness, the depression has been real, drinking juice, saving my butt. Good, Tiffany. You're awesome. That's really awesome. But yeah, I mean, it's all about evolution. Because we've already been through the revolutions and we're devolving at this point. Not all of us, but some of us are devolving to where people are just working from their baser instincts. They haven't, they're working from their baser instincts. They've reached all the different levels of Maslow's ladder, but they really relate to the base level of society. It's all about emotions. It's all about bullying people. It's all about creating, for and against. It's all about reproduction and all of that. And, I think we have a higher purpose than just bullying or being about love, and hate, and reproduction and food, shelter, and water. Okay, we know we need all of those things based upon by the fluctuations, but there's a higher purpose for humanity. And some people will reach that higher purpose and see much more for themselves. Other people will stay at that base level into reproduction, whether or not that's their intention. They'll all be about food, water, and shelter because they're still worried about the water. They have issues with the food, and they're always seeking shelter. And then, maybe they worry about their safety. I don't know. So we're dealing with so many different people in our society. And at some point, you step away from all of that mess. You step away from the emotions. You step away from all of that crap. And you become a much better version of yourself where you evolve so hard that people don't even know how to relate to you anymore. They'll try to relate to you from the way who you used to be. When they meet you again and they haven't seen you in like maybe a year or so, and you're this wholly different person, they're trying to like bring up things that you're like, what the hell? I've dealt with that 50 years ago. Well, maybe a couple years ago, but not 50, but it may seem like it. They won't know how to relate to you, and then you have to go and teach people about you. And they don't know how to do it. They'll just keep droning on their way of doing stuff, and you're just like, dude, I can't relate to you anymore. That's what it's going to be like. Because there's some people you're going to have to shed out of your world because they keep bringing you down. They keep reinforcing all the crap that you don't want to be reinforced. And that's why it's so difficult for some people to do the J Juice, because they still get pulled into the worlds out there, to the activism, to all of the blame game. And so they're teetering between the J-Juice world, which is a very minority world, to this major like acceptance of their culture and their people. And that's hard to give up. But you don't have to give it up. You can actually go and change that. But you have to know how to do that, which means that you have to take care of your body, mind, and spirit. Yeah. Chrissy goes, yeah, I found that for certain friends, I'm like that. It's so weird. Even my best friends. Yeah. Because, I mean, they knew you from who you were before. And then now that you're this powerful, awesome person, and you were back then too, but you had definitely were leading from your wounds. And my mom told me that, when I was younger, because she's a psychologist, right? She's like, yeah, you're leading from your wounds, Jillian. I'm like, yeah, I know. And so that it's hard not to relate. It's hard not to relate to people leading from their wounds. And so when you stop leading from your wounds, people don't know how to relate to you anymore. Now you have to reteach them about who you are. And then if they're, leading from their wounds and they knew how to relate to you in that way, they won't know how to relate to you because they'll still keep droning on about all their wounds, all of their issues, all of their drama. And they keep cycling. And you're just like, dude, come on, evolve from that. You chose this life, evolve from that. This is what happened to you many, many years ago. Get over it. But you can't tell someone who's been cycling in their trauma to get over it. That's cold. So you have to step away from it because you can't tell people to get off the freaking hamster wheel. It's not your job. But in your head, you say, oh my God, I wish they would just get over it or accept this is the way it is. You chose this. This is the way it is. You can change it. You can walk away from it or you can try to change it, but you can't change other people. So what do? You accept it or you walk away. Or you change it if you can. But not all the time people change other people. So that's the beauty of J-Juice is understanding your limitations and your boundaries, and you set them, and then you realize what people are up against, and you hope, and you give them all the I give you guys all the warnings of what to expect. I was very honest with you way in the beginning how hard this is going to be. I told everybody how hard this was going to be. Lillian, back in the old 60,000 group, wrote down everything a person could potentially experience based upon their predispositions. We were very honest with you on how hard Jilly Juice is going to be. And some of you, it's going to be a lot harder than others. And I mean, that's a no duh. But then I'm looking at the people who are that have been promoting or have been giving me testimonies. And it's there is a difference. But I'm not going to go into that because it's just I'm not going to say it specifically, but I'll say that people with a lighter melanin have an easier time than people with a darker complexion. And that's all I'm going to say. Okay? Because hormones and physical characteristics and all of that make up what race is. Race is not a culture. Race really is just physical characteristics, a shared physical characteristics of people. Okay? And culture is your belief system. It's your traditions. It's your daily practices. And so Jilly Juice can equalize the races to where we're all the same. But the only way for you to be the same is you have to recalibrate your biochemistry. So you're on an equal playing field. And you're going to have to deal with all of your predispositions. But the future is egalitarian. The past is all very unequal because some people have a lot more issues than other people. But as soon as you purge out those issues, all of you will be on the equal playing field. And you'll be able to compete equally. It's those that can't compete, have a hard time competing, are the ones that get the most flack. Because they have their own issues that they can't compete, and then they project that onto other people who feel that energy, and they respond in kind. Okay? So that's all I'm going to say right now, but I just wanted you guys to know and to give you a heads up that it's going to be harder for some because of historical traumas, and it's not impossible. But I see definitely a pattern looking at my participants and looking at who has given me a testimony and who hasn't. And it makes sense. And I'm sad about it because it is very difficult. I'm sad, but I'm not, but I am, because I know that, because I know how difficult this can be. And if somebody really wants to live, they're going to have to change their life. And so, anyways, that's all I'm going to say. All right, have a good day. Bye.